All right, guys, welcome back to the Pocket Math channel. It's Maddie here, and today I'm going to be highlighting some super cool, not very well known or very commonly played decks that have done well recently in online tournaments. The new ranked season just started, so I figured today's a good day to not only highlight, of course, those off-meta decks that we'd like to do every Wednesday, but also, showcase some deck lists that I think could be a nice refresher, could be something different to play this new ranked season that I definitely think you could climb with and are definitely good enough to compete. Now, when it comes to like the top meta decks, like the popular, top tier stuff, we're going to cover that on Friday, and I'm going to give you my best deck recommendations for ranked battles in just a few days in Friday's video. But today, it's Wednesday. I wanted to highlight some of the lesser known and lesser played decks that have done well, at tournaments over the past week. And again, tournament play and ranked battle play are a bit different. However, there's a lot of similarities, right? So, when you're kind of looking to figure out what the best decks are for ranked, the tournament data is the best place to go. It's really the only tournament, it's the only data that we have for Pokemon Pocket. So it's what I use very, very often. And again, all of these decks performed pretty well at online tournaments, and I find that to be pretty cool. Now, before we get into those decks, you gotta like this video and subscribe. We are literally this close, super close to 50,000 subscribers, and you guys should definitely hit that subscribe button. I would really appreciate it. And again, we have a massive surprise, a really, really big announcement coming as soon as we hit 50,000 subscribers. So I'm really excited about that. Check to see if you're subscribed, and if you're not, smash that subscribe button. Also, PMPT number 39, the largest and longest weekly Pokemon Pocket tournament series, is this upcoming weekend, as it typically is. PMPT number 39 is Saturday, July 18th at noontime. That's noon Eastern. Link to register down in the description below. Also, join the Discord. Also, should be down in the description below. But anyway, let's get into the deck lists. We got a handful of really, really cool decks today. Some are going to be some brand new concepts, some older concepts that have kind of come back and did well recently, which is always a fun thing to talk about. What's interesting is that we're 2 weeks into the season, pretty much exactly, which means that not only is ranked beginning right now, but also next week we're going to get the announcement trailer or teaser for the Mega Rayquaza B4 set, and then the week after that, the set comes, and things happen so quickly for Pokemon Pocket. It's honestly really cool. But anyway, the first deck today is going to be Hosei's deck from Japan, from the Notice and X Storm pop-up number 5. Now, this is going to be Giratina EX, and as we all know, Giratina is quite popular. Currently this season, it is one of the more dominant top-tier meta decks. However, it sees play with Indeedee and, of course, Oricorio in that really annoying Indeedee Oricorio deck that we have covered here on the channel a couple of times. It's, dominated a few tournaments. It's a deck that people are playing, and it's very dangerous. But this is kind of a spin on that concept. 6-2-1 record, again, really, really cool. Here's the deck list. It's going to be basically an updated, upgraded, or I guess just a refreshed version of Giratina Darkrai, right? You guys remember Darktina, the original GOAT of Pokemon Pocket before Suicune came in and absolutely, kind of took that over. Giratina Darkrai, it does still see a little bit of play. Like even the traditional standard versions of Giratina Darkrai, which typically play like one Indeedee, they are seeing a bit of play this season. It's not a terrible deck list. This deck list, though, in my mind, is pretty cool, right? So we're playing double Giratina, one Indeedee EX, so 3 Psychic EX Pokemon, and then 3 Dark-type EX Pokemon, and a couple of those are Megas, being Mega Absol and Mega Sableye. So this is a cool deck list. Hosei, again, had a really great run with this deck. I think Indeedee is really useful. This is a deck that doesn't even play starting plates, which typically you do see in the Giratina Darkrai stuff. However, Peculiar Plaza, arguably even a better stadium card here, because it does give Giratina and Indeedee free retreat, which is always a really big deal. And again, basically, Giratina EX is going to, spam that Broken Space, Broken Space Bellow ability and generate those Psychic Energies, and then we manually attach Dark Energies to, a different Pokemon, and we force our opponent by turn 3 or turn 4 to have to go through a Giratina and one of these other Dark-type EX Pokemon. I do like this deck list. What I do like here is the Double Dawn, right? So Peculiar Plaza and Double Dawn gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of, which Pokemon we can kind of get into the active spot and supplement with energies, right? Darkrai EX has a colorless energy in the attack cost, but Sableye has a single colorless and a single dark energy. So this is something that I actually really, really like, and it's something I want to test a bit more of. Just the concept of Sableye EX and Giratina with Dawn, right? We've seen Dawn see play in Giratina Darkrai from way back. In fact, we used to play one copy of Dawn in Mewtwo Giratina way back when ranked, actually first started. And that was a really fun deck. Dawn is not a bad card. Energy kind of swapping and moving is a really, really big deal in Pokemon Pocket. We actually see it all the time. Elemental Switch always sees a decent amount of play. Right now, Washout Vaporeon is seeing a ton of play. So there's a lot of reason to believe that, being able to move energies like with Dawn as an example here is going to be a really effective strategy. Yes, I do know Dawn is a supporter and not an item card, but to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if we get some additional energy movement support in a future set, whether it is like a basic bench sitting Pokemon or, like more item cards, right? That aren't just for Elemental Switch, of course, as an example. It's only Lightning, Water, and Fire energy, so it'd be nice to have like an item card that can move energies of other types as well. But I like this deck, right? It's basically Giratina Darkrai, but with some extra options thrown in there. As we know, Mega Absol and Mega Sableye are really strong Pokemon. So if you wanted to get your Giratina Darkrai, games in, like if you wanted to sort of satisfy or scratch that itch, this is going to be a really cool updated version of Giratina Darkrai here. And Hosi did really well with it. It's actually categorized as Giratina and Sableye, which is interesting. But again, 6-2-1 record. Really nice run. Really cool deck. But next up is Sunfighter, again at the same Notice Storm pop-up tournament, and this is a 4-3 record Mega Swampert. Now, I personally love Mega Swampert, so whenever this Pokemon does well, I feel compelled to cover it on our Wednesday video series. And honestly, Mega Swampert is an incredibly strong Pokemon. Here we are playing it with double Mantike and then just one Furfrou, only one Mega Swampert, one Marshtomp, and then double Mudkip here. And if you take a look at this deck, it's basically a bunch of sustain and a bunch of healing, which is kind of the main concept of Mega Swampert. This thing has 230 HP, and it does have it has a 3 energy retreat cost, which means you can use Heavy Helmet with it. So here we are playing Lucky Egg, which is something that we would attach to Mantike to help draw some more cards, or for whatever our leadoff Pokemon is that, inevitably will get KO'd. And we're also playing one copy of Lily for healing, Lucky Ice Pot for healing, Big Malasada for a tiny bit of healing, but some status condition healing, and then, of course, Heavy Helmet to reduce the damage coming in. Juliana to find our Stage 2, our single Mega Swampert. You could also play, is it Serena? There's another supporter card that just grabs a Mega Pokemon, so you could effectively just play that. It would do the same thing as Juliana. And here we're playing one Parasol Lady, so put one of your water Pokemon in play, accept any Pokemon EX into your hand. So this is going to be a really nice retreat option, maybe if you do lead with Mudkip, or, of course, if you just don't want your Swampert to get KO'd, right? You can effectively scoop it back up, which would be pretty funny. But there's certain strategies here that you can employ, which I do like. One rare candy, one middle evolution. It's a really interesting deck. Mega Swampert is an incredibly powerful Pokemon. Bunch of HP. The attack is really strong. Does 150 for 3 energies. Now, typically, Mega Pokemon like to have 2 or less energies in their attack cost. 2 is kind of the sweet spot. There's no Mega Pokemon with a single energy attack cost yet, that is. But we do have access to things like Mantike, right? So that's the concept with Mega Swampert. More of a late-game Mega Pokemon, but definitely one of the stronger Pokemon in the game. Its attack discards 2 random energies amongst all the energy attached to all Pokemon on the board, both yours and your opponent. So sometimes you're discarding your own energy or your opponent's. Either way, the attack is either really, really strong or absolutely terrible. It kind of depends, which is, I think, inherently why Mega Swampert doesn't see a ton of like top tier meta play. But this is a fun deck, and again, a decent record here, 4-3 at an online tournament. You love to see it. Shout out to Mega Swampert. I don't know if I would choose to bring Mega Swampert onto ranked battles, but trust me, if you do, you're going to get a lot of style points, and I guarantee you your opponents are going to respect you massively for playing Mega Swampert. But anyway, shout out to him. Shout out to Sunfighter and his deck list. Super cool. Next up at the Sonus Pog tournament, number 20 is going to be Froggy X Njord, one of the better players in all of competitive Pokemon Pocket from France, and he's playing Mega Altaria. So I wanted to highlight this. This is a 5-2-1 record. I wanted to highlight this because, as we know, Mega Altaria is one of the all-timers in Pokemon Pocket. But this is kind of a throwback deck to me, right? When you see Mega Altaria, especially these days, it's almost exclusively seeing play with, Espeon and Bad Dreams Darkrai, right? Like, that's the way that people are playing Altaria right now in July of 2026. But there's a lot of other ways to play Altaria. This is an incredibly flexible Pokemon and a very strong Pokemon. So I wanted to highlight this because this is kind of a throwback version, right? We have the Chinglings, we have Jirachi plus Tapu Lele for extra bench damage. We've got the Klefki for dismantling keys, is the ability name. And then, of course, the Furfrou, which we can just sort of play as another great leadoff option. So this is more of a traditional, Chingling, Jirachi Altaria deck, which as we know back in the day, months and months ago, when Altaria first released, like this was a very common way to play it. Here we are playing 1 copy of Red and Rocky Helmet and Training Area. So lots of extra damage modification in here. 1 Lissia, you got to play Lissia in your Altaria decks. It's one of the biggest benefits of Altaria and Chingling. And then you have Cyrus and Sabrina. I actually really like this deck. I think that there's a lot more room for Altaria to be a meta-relevant Pokemon and a meta-relevant deck in this, current season that's not Sleep. And I know Sleep did well recently at our tournament this past weekend, and it'll be popular and ranked. It's something that everyone knows about and everybody wants to play it because it is strong. But at the end of the day, like I think Mega Altaria does extremely well in some of these other decks. I think that Jirachi's a good Pokemon, but Tapu Lele is a massively underrated Pokemon. A lot of decks like to pile on energies. Like it's a really big deal. Tapu Lele, if you forget, this is a somewhat old card. For 1 Psychic Energy, it does 20 damage to any one of your opponent's Pokemon for each energy attached to that Pokemon. So this is going to be really nice to maybe target those kind of Giratinas or Darkrai's that might be sitting on your opponent's bench. Maybe Milotic on the bench, which is, piling on energies. Or even maybe like a Miraidon, right? That it kind of comes in with like 12 energies and kind of KOs something. And then you can go into Tapu Lele and deal a ton of damage to it, right? So there's a lot of instances where Tapu Lele is an incredible card. And I actually do really like it. It also has 90 HP. 90 HP on this Tapu Lele. It's a kind of a tanky Pokemon. And it's also really nice because it can put immediate pressure on your opponent, just like Jirachi, whereas if you lead with it and your opponent wants to set up a Pokemon on their bench, so they're just attaching to that bench Pokemon, maybe they lead with a baby or Chingling or something, you can actually just target that bench Pokemon and then maybe bring it up later in the game with Cyrus. So I really like this, right? It's Chingling item lock, bench damage basics, plus Mega Altaria, and of course we do have the busted Furfrou, the double headbutt Furfrou, which came out in this past set, which I told everyone was going to be a good card. And trust me, it probably should see play in like every deck. It's just a really, really nice card to have. And then Klefki, because why not, right? There we go. There we go, guys. Mega Altaria. Here's like more of a throwback version, what I call like an ethical version, right? At this point, it's crazy that Chingling is considered like the ethical way to play certain decks, but it is. Like it's a Chingling deck. It's not Sleep. It's not Greninja. It's Chingling, and I really do like that. And that's another factor too to like keep in mind. Like this is a similar list to Greninja Altaria, except instead of Greninja, like we're playing the Jirachi and Tapu Lele instead, which is pretty cool, right? It's definitely not bad. This is a deck that I would love to play in ranked. Maybe you slot in a Mars, right? Maybe the Chingling Mars stuff is still really good. I know Hand Disruption sees less play these days, and I do like all of the damage modification in here with Red, Rocky Helmet, and Training Area. But that being said, perhaps a Mars can maybe find its way into the deck. Maybe not. I don't know. What do you guys think? But yeah, anyway, shout out to Najord, one of the better players in the game and a really awesome deck that I loved seeing. I love it. I love Altaria when it's played like this, honestly. Next up at the Ink Cup Championships, Iluchin and Nick and what is this? Kisk? Anyway, this is going to be Shiny Laps from the United States, who went 8-1-1 playing Turbo Mega Kangaskhan. That's right. You guys remember, like, when Mega Kangaskhan came out, a lot of people thought this would be, like, the new Arceus. And Mega Kangaskhan is a very strong Pokemon for a lot of different reasons. Now, there are some inherent downsides to it, which we do have to just mention right off the bat. But let's talk about the deck first. So, again, just literally double Pichu and 1 Mega Kangaskhan, right? So, you have a little bit better than a 2 out of 3 odds to lead off with Pichu and not Mega Kangaskhan, which isn't terrible. You are going to lose probably about 20 to 25 of your games, like almost immediately. Or probably less, though, because we do play double Ilima. And that's the reason why we play Ilima. You put one of your colorless Pokemon that has any damage onto it into your hand. And this puts your opponent in a really strange situation when you lead Kangaskhan, because they think to themselves, like, well, do I attack this? Because he's just going to Ilima it. Or should I, should I not attack it and then he's just going to attach energy? So you have to attack it at some point. It's a really funny, checkmate type of weird situation here. And again, the 1 Pichu allows you to scoop up Mega Kangaskhan with Ilima after it takes damage, put it back onto your bench, go into Pichu, and then Crackly Toss to it and attach to it. So it's basically a turn 2 setup, which you can kind of guarantee at any point in time. It's such a weird deck, right? Especially even after Mega Kangaskhan maybe gets an attack off. Let's say Mega Kangaskhan gets the first big attack off, and then it takes a lot of damage, right? Then you can just sort of scoop it up, go into Pichu, again, then attach again, and then Crackly Toss to it. And then, your opponent KOs the Pichu, and then you just repeat. So you basically get 3 different lives with Mega Kangaskhan. And it's a strong Pokemon. This attack for 3 colorless does 80 damage, but then it does 40 as well. So it's 2 different attacks in one. This is really nice for a couple of reasons. Traditionally, the biggest kind of concept or interaction with Mega Kangaskhan was that, damage modification like Red and Giovanni worked for both attacks, right? Which is funny. So, Red would boost the first attack and second attack by 20, so effectively a plus 40 as long as it was to an EX Pokemon. And Giovanni, it was the same with 10 damage, but to any Pokemon, which is really cool. It allowed Mega Kangaskhan to hit for some crazy numbers, right? Instead of 120, it's 160, and that's going to KO a lot of relevant Pokemon. Serena here, double Serena to grab Mega Kangaskhan out of the deck, so just maximum consistency, 0 Copycat in this deck list, and then double Lucky Ice Pop and double Heavy Helmet. So this deck really just has the essentials, as well as a Sabrina. No Cyrus in the deck, though, but I guess it's mostly a deck built around one-hit KOing Pokemon. This is something that you could surprise a ton of people with in Ranked, and it's just not something people are going to want to go up against, right? Sure, there's going to be those Mega Lucario decks that could do some crazy stuff and maybe want to KO you, but other than that, you're feeling pretty good playing Mega Kangaskhan into a lot of the metagame. Oricorio is going to be a factor, right? So if you hit an Oricorio deck, it's a hard scoop up, and that's something that you'll notice here. And I'm sure by the time I mentioned that just now, people are commenting down below, what about Oricorio? But you know what? Oricorio isn't. It's one of those things, especially in Ranked as well. We've seen decks that just can't beat Oricorio be very successful in Ranked and in tournament play, right? So that's the thing. When you take a look at this deck list, he beat virtually every, top tier deck that you could kind of conceivably play. Beat Lightning, beat Suicune, beat Dark Greninja, beat Miraidon, Magnezone, beat Milotic, beat Hydreigon, beat like everything, you know what I mean? So they went 8-1-1. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like, if you hit Oricorio, you just move on to the next. And honestly, decks like that are quite, I like them a lot in Ranked, I'm not going to lie. Because it's like, you don't really have to like sit there for like these super long games where half the time you're going to lose anyway. It's almost more efficient to just be like, oh, it's Oricorio, I'm just going to get out of here. And that's probably why you're playing one Sabrina, so that you technically do have the ability to beat an Oricorio deck if they are only playing one copy of Oricorio. But anyway, yeah, there we go. Mega Kangaskhan, just a very, very straightforward Mega Kangaskhan deck. And it's interesting because like Turbo Arceus was a thing way back before Megas. And honestly, like Mega Kangaskhan really is like that new Pokemon. This is the Pokemon that you play if you're not going to be playing Arceus. Like, it's just the next version of it. It's a basic colorless Pokemon with a strong attack, 180 HP with Heavy Helmet, double Lucky Ice Pop, and PCL is like kind of toxic, like I'm not going to lie. And the double Ilima, like this is a really, really tough deck to get through. In fact, Heavy Helmet should protect you from getting KO'd by Lucario potentially. Maybe not if they fully set up their damage mods, but anyway. Mega Kangaskhan Pichu, Turbo Kang, you'll love to see it. Next up, at the Breakfast Club, late night number 5 is Rafael Suarez from Brazil, 6-2-1. Guess what, guys? He's playing Mega Venusaur. Yet another deck that, again, just is not able to beat Oricorio. But, Mega Venusaur has been one of those interesting, like, checkmate type Pokemon for a very long time. Somebody commented on a video recently. They're like, what about, like, Quick Growth Extract Mega Venusaur? Like, is it worth playing right now? Is it something that's strong? And again, like, if you're not hitting into the Oricorio stuff, like, you always have the opportunity to win. Mega Venusaur EX was a card that was very strong into basically everything, at least in this composition, which is, again, just straight Venusaur, nothing else. It was incredibly strong into, like, most meta decks, but it just hard lost to Charizard Y, which could hit you for 250 and just KO you. And then you also kind of hard lost to Oricorio because you had no way to get around it. But other than those two matchups, which again probably turned a lot of people off of playing Venusaur, it was really good. This is a deck that continuously does well into Suicune, and that's a really, really big deal. It's also going to do well into Sleep because all of your Pokemon have a lot of HP, right? And we are playing PCL. Playing double Potion in the deck is crazy. The fact that this person's playing 2 potions instead of Lucky Ice Pop, is Lucky Ice Pop banned in this tournament? I need to know. I don't even know if it was. Was it banned? I don't think it was. I think he just straight up was like, you know what? I'm going to play potions instead of Lucky Ice Pop. So the ethical player here, but yeah, you could just play Lucky Ice Pop and it'd probably be better. I'm not going to lie. Yeah, double Erica, 1 Lily, 1 Heavy Helmet, 1 Leaf Cape, and then double Sabrina. So again, like really, just making sure if you do hit Oricorio, you can technically win with the double Sabrinas, which is pretty funny. Like that's a hilarious thing to note. Like both this and of course the Kangaskhan deck, we're playing the Sabrinas. But anyway, yeah, this is a similar deck. The only difference between this and Mega Kangaskhan is that Mega Kangaskhan can attack like a turn earlier, and it has like the scoop up effect where Mega Venusaur just like straight up doesn't even use baby Pokemon or anything. It's just saying like, I'm literally going to get this Venusaur in the active and attack you over and over again. One of the original sleep Pokemon, right? Before Bad Dreams or anything, like Mega Venusaur was putting people asleep and winning games way back in the day. So it's kind of funny, kind of fitting that we bring Mega Venusaur back in a metagame where sleep is very popular. I find that to be hilarious. But yeah, Mega Venusaur, 120 sleep and paralysis. Again, it takes 4 energies, and you might be like, oh, that's a little bit too much. But Synthesis on Ivysaur allows you to basically set itself up in 2 turns, which is pretty cool, or 3 technically, because you need to evolve. But yeah, shout out to Mega Venusaur, and again, shout out to Rafael Soares, playing Mega Venusaur from Brazil, going 6-2-1. I ended up losing to Sceptile Greninja, unfortunately, and actually lost to Sceptile Greninja twice, but again, beat a lot of top-tier decks. Beat Suicune, of course, beat Magnezone, interestingly enough, beat Manectric, and he did beat a Sceptile Greninja. Sceptile Greninja is an incredible deck. We're not going to be talking about that in today's video. That's something we're going to talk about in Friday's video, but anyway, shout out to him. Next up, at the PMPT number 38 Whimsical Wonders this past weekend is going to be the Fossil Man. I told you guys on Monday that we would be covering this deck in today's video, and this is such a cool deck list. It's so cool to see because I did, and I'm not saying I'm the reason for this, but I did mention that Rampardos was a very, very, deadly Pokemon right now. Now, Chingling does stop it, which is something to keep in mind. But this is going to be Berry Lax Rampardos, which is a deck that honestly terrifies me to this day and is one of those really interesting, like, single prize decks that straight up is just very strong. The fighting seems a bit limited, right? Like back in the day, fighting was like exclusively Rampardos, and then it was like a little bit of Garchomp for a bit, and then it was just Lucario. Like those are the only like real fighting type decks I feel like we've had for a very long time. But yeah, this is a way for us to play Rampardos, but without playing like. Do you guys remember Silvally? Do you guys remember Rampardos Silvally? If you're newer to the game, you don't remember, but back in like the A series, it was one of the more dominant decks for a while. And this to me is kind of like a very similar deck. Like it's instead of Silvally, we're playing Snorlax. This is the new massive body Snorlax, by the way, which stops your opponent from playing stadium cards, which if you haven't noticed, does basically like hard win you some matchups sometimes. Some decks entirely rely on the Peculiar Plaza. They rely on the starting planes. It's really funny to see that like this massive body ability, although it seems like it's whatever, like it is actually just really good. Now this Snorlax does only 70 damage for 3 colorless energies. So you might be thinking like, how do we get this attack off like consistently? But that's where Berry comes in. This Berry, this supporter card here, allows you to attack with your Snorlax for 2 less colorless energy. So even if you lead Snorlax, which is honestly your ideal lead, it's your only lead, in fact, in this deck list, because you can't lead with the fossils because there's no other basic Pokemon. You're guaranteed to lead Snorlax, and if you get Berry in your hand, you just attach 1 energy, which is a fighting energy, of course, and then you just hit for 1 for 70, and that's going to KO a lot of Pokemon. So it's honestly a very aggressive deck, but it's also a fairly tanky deck, right, with Snorlax, and then, of course, late game is Rampardos coming in with Rocky Helmet, Arena of Antiquity, ready to kind of just take souls, hitting for 130. So I do like the combo. 70 plus 130 is quite a bit of damage, and also, Snorlax hitting for 70, if you can do it back-to-back turns, like is a pretty big deal because that's 140, and that's going to be a nice sweet spot to KO a lot of different Pokemon. So this is a really interesting deck and a really great run. 8-3. This man went all the way to top 16 where he lost to Harian playing Zoroark. He also lost to Mega Lucario and Mega Altaria, but beat a lot of really strong decks, including a couple of lightning decks, or at least one. He actually beat 1 Lucario, 2 Lucario, 3 Lucario, which is really, really cool to see. Beat Giratina Darkrai, even beat Mega Gardevoir Diancie. So a really, really cool deck. One of my favorites. This is like my #1 like favorite deck from this past weekend. And it has seen a bit more play in some smaller tournaments throughout this week, but like since our tournament, which is always really cool to see. So this is a deck to me that, certainly could win you games. It is something that a part of me thinks to myself, like, should we think about Silvally? Silvally's a Pokemon that just nobody's played for some time now, and I genuinely think it's probably still one of the better Pokemon in the game, especially with all of the new Stage 1 support that we have. So it's just something to think about and something to look into. I personally really like Silvally, but this is Snorlax Berry instead of Silvally, so who knows? I mean, is it good? I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see, but anyway, shout out to this player here, the Fossil Man, appropriately named. The Fossil Man, going 8-3 with Rampardos. That's so cool. I love it. But next up is going to be Psychoed, who did play Great Tusk Koraidon at the PMPT Whimsical Wonders tournament number 38. And he went 7-3 playing the GOAT himself, Iron Tusk. This is a deck from the last season, right? It was saw like fringe play. The upside here is that we do have the new Furfrou, even though he's not playing it. He's just playing the old Furfrou. So this might be like a copy-paste deck from last season. But as we all know, Great Tusk is a very strong Pokemon, especially when you kind of have the double Ancient Booster Capsules and double Lucky Ice Pops and PCLs. Like, it's a very annoying Pokemon to go through. This is one of the more underrated Pokemon in the game. Unfortunately, you would virtually never play this Great Tusk other than things like Furfrou, which can protect themselves from the Shaking Stomp pinch damage, or Koraidon, which you don't ever bench, right? It's just a funny card. Like, it made clear sense to me that the only way that they kind of intended us to play Koraidon was with Great Tusk, and it really wasn't bad. It just wasn't like good enough, you know what I mean? I think it's still one of those decks where if I was playing ranked right now, I might boot up some Great Tusk and there's just an absolutely incredible time, because it is still one of my favorite decks in the game. I wanted to highlight it because, again, did make day 2 at our tournament this past weekend, and it is Great Tusk. You guys know how much I love Great Tusk. But anyway, there you go. Shout out to him. Lastly here, is this lastly? Yes. Lastly is going to be Amilaz from Turkey, who went 6-3. Serperior and Mega Heracross, right? This is a fringe deck that's been, on the fringe for quite some time. Ever since this promo Mega Heracross came into the game, people have been playing this a little bit. If you remember Jungle Totem Serperior, which actually released in the second ever expansion to Pokemon Pocket, saw a ton of play with Celebi, right? The OGs remember Celebi Serperior. It wasn't that good, but it was inherently like pretty funny, and could, certainly take a ton of KOs. Now we're just doing it, but we're doing it with Heracross. And we're actually playing Powerful Friends. Is this 2 Powerful Friends Heracross? Which for 2 colorless energy here, if you have any stage 2 Pokemon on your bench, it does 50 more damage for 2 colorless. But of course, if you have Serperior in play, it's only a single colorless energy, and it does hit for 80 damage, right? So that combo does make a bit of sense. Both Heracross, I think, are actually quite good with a Jungle Totem Serperior. But again, we also have things like Fragrant Forest and Double Copycat, right? So the whole setting up a stage 2 Pokemon to support you on the bench is actually a bit more consistent than it ever has been, especially Grass-type Pokemon in a deck playing entirely Grass-type Pokemon with Fragrant Forest, which I like. Small Balloon to give all of our Pokemon a little bit better retreat cost. Unfortunately, it's not going to give Heracross or Mega Heracross free retreat, but it does give your Snivy's retreat to get off to the bench. To be fair, you kind of want to lead with Heracross anyway. This is like the lead-off Pokemon. Ideally, you get Serperior up on your bench, but you go single prize Heracross into single prize Heracross, and then you finish the game with Mega Heracross, which again uses Dynamic Horn for only 2 energies if Mega Serperior is on your bench, which is really not terrible. Now, there's a lot of strong Grass-type decks in the game. Mega Heracross really isn't that weak. Again, this player went 6-3, did make day 2 at our tournament. Lost to Blaziken, unfortunately, but beat Charizard. Lost to Blaziken twice, dude. Like, shout out to this guy who brought Heracross, hit Blaziken, hit Fire 3 different times in the tournament, and still made it into top 64. What an absolute legend. Beat Altaria, beat Gardevoir twice, beat double Dark decks, like just a really cool, actually he lost one of them, but really cool. A really, really awesome deck. This is something that I love to highlight. Like, I know, I'm sure some people have seen this deck before. I definitely have covered it on the channel. But, when somebody brings Mega Heracross Superior to a PMPT tournament and makes day 2, we got to highlight it because that's what it's really all about. But anyway, guys, there you go. That's our midweek meta showcase. Again, super close to 50,000 subscribers. We have a super special announcement coming once we hit 50,000. So you got to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Help us get there. I would really, really appreciate it. These are some really, really fun, amazing decks that I honestly think can compete and definitely get you pretty far in ranked. I don't know if I'd want to climb to like top 100 with Mega Heracross and whatnot, and the rest of these decks, but they're certainly really interesting options. So for those of you that wanted to play something a little bit different, I kind of like to do both here in my channel, right? I like to cover like the top of the meta, and then some of the off fringe meta stuff that again doesn't see as much play, but really isn't that bad and deserves a mention. That's what the Wednesday video series is all about. But if you are interested in what the best actual top tier meta decks are for ranked battles, stay tuned because I'll be talking about it on Friday in just a couple of days. So stay tuned for that. Definitely go register for PMPT number 39. It's going to be a ton of fun. We're going to live stream it. Just always a good time. Link to register down in the description below. Smash that subscribe button. Join the Discord as well. Comment down below. Which decks are you playing in ranked right now? Which decks do you think are the most underrated? Do you think any of these decks are actually quite good? And out of all of the decks in today's video, which one do you think is the best? Comment down below and let me know, guys. But anyway, that's the video. Let me get out of here. Peace out. Have a good one. We'll see you guys later. And yeah.